Have you watched the episode? Are we recording today?
Guten Tag
Oh, Jesus.
und willkommen to the measure of an episode. As you know, where shoot, I don't have the script up. Where each week our continuing mission is to explore what makes a Star Trek episode.
I can't tell
Star
if you're
Trek.
a German impersonating an American or the other way around. It just keeps coming in and out. Continue.
And not just quality or crappy TV using three criteria. Paul, what are the three criteria?
I was going to do another accent, but then I realized it would be very racist. German is the only one that...
So as a teacher, like I will do accents for different characters when I'm reading a book, and kids have said, "Can you do different accents?" I'm like, "Yeah." And they're like, "Do Jamaican." I said, "No, I'm not."
No, because I know that kid is definitely recording you in that moment.
Right. Do it. I dare you. Yeah.
The three criteria by which we judge these episodes. Does it have a procedural expression of science fiction? Science fiction must be in the plot in some way. Number 2, is there an expression of morality weaved into the episode? Weaved, like a soft carpet. And that's it. The end. Hello? This thing?
Yeah, I was trying to think of the third one. Like, do they have shirts?
Do they have shirts? Oh, I thought you were embodying the listener in that moment, wondering if we had the Measure of an Episode shirts. And I know at this moment, It sounds like that I'm setting this up for a merch sell, which it is not.
Right. It is not.
We do not have shirts. We do not have shirts at all.
This setup, much like this podcast, is just full of disappointment.
Although I'm not disappointed in the episode that we watched, mainly because my expectations are so low now that anything is a surprise. Oh, it's in color. Excellent.
So,
what episode was this?
The episode. This was You Are Cordially Invited To, You Are Cordially Invited. I actually thought the 2 was there. You Are Cordially Invited, which is
It's not the sequel.
It's the 37th episode of season 19 of DS9. It's the 7th episode of season 6 of DS9.
This episode was written and directed by Robert Altman.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah. Did you know that? You didn't know that. I'm surprised you didn't know that.
I did not know that, yeah. That's why I was surprised by that.
Well, you can know something and still be surprised by it. Can you? Can you know something but still be surprised at it? Yeah.
I don't... Like what? I can understand being surprised when you first learn about it and be like, and tell people isn't that surprising. But I can't imagine that every time you hear it, you're like, oh yeah. Well, no, because then you're still remembering it for the first time. You'd be like, I knew that.
Yeah. Okay. So food. Because food, I know, like, for example, I love whole grain sourdough. It's like my favorite thing ever on the planet.
Okay.
On the planet!
Okay. That's a bold claim, yeah.
So the idea being is that every time it's surprising. Like, especially if it's been a week or something since I've had it and I bite into it. Even knowing, like, the reason I bought it and the reason I spent $10 on this loaf of bread is because I know it's amazing. But I bite into it. I'm like, oh, I'm surprised again. I'm like, I can't believe how good this bread is.
Even there, like you think you know, but you have actually forgotten a little bit. So you are being reminded. Like your statement is, can you be surprised by something you absolutely know?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I guess it's a different kind of surprise. It's a reminder. I mean, what's the difference? Right? If you've forgotten about it until you are reminded about it again, there's no difference between knowing it and not knowing it, I guess.
Right. Like, I know who my daughter is. I'm not going to walk into a room. Like, I can't be surprised by something you know. Like, I could be surprised that she's in the room, but I'm not surprised of my daughter's existence.
Well, those are two different things. Yeah. But I mean, like, I'm trying to think. I guess there are more sort of abstract things. Like, I can't believe that we can fly as a species, or we've gone to the moon. Like that's still I guess not surprising. It's just sort of generally unbelievable if you think about it long enough. I guess, like that kind of thing. But it's
are
not
you admitting that you're a flat earther right now?
It's too surprising. It just can't be. It must be
it's
something
unbelievable.
It must be something simpler, like the Earth is flat.
How does water stay on it if it's round? Answer me that. Oh, those people. Anyway.
Yeah. It answers way more questions than it asks. Having a flat Earth.
Does it?
So I don't know.
All right, so what are we watching next?
How did we get? Yeah, exactly. Oh, are we done? That was easy. That was like a flu shot.
Speaking of which, people, get your flu shots.
Yeah, please get a flu shot.
All right, so the blurb is, now that we're like 15 minutes into this episode, Worf and Dax resume the planning of their long-awaited wedding, which hinges on Martok's wife, Sorella, accepting Dax into the house of Martok. So it's weird. Like, the person who writes the blurbs must have been sick this day, and the other person came in and kind of felt obligated to watch the episodes, because none of that, other than Worf and Dax resuming the planning of their wedding, maybe, is in the cold open.
Well, see, here's the thing, though. It was tidied up. It was edited because the main guy who does DS9 wrote Worf and Dax resume the planning of their long-awaited wedding. Period. Right? But in the language, in the writing, there's a double hyphen, which I've never seen before in these things. So it's like, of their long-awaited wedding, -- which hinges on Martok's wife, Sorella, accepting blah, blah, blah. Like, that was an edit. Somebody came in, like, and they marked their work, right? So every time we see that -- someone came in and fixed it.
Okay, which they didn't think to fix. Anyway, weird. It must have been like spot editing. You know, they just picked random episodes to look at, and they said, that's not true. And
yeah, it was quality control, and this was one of the ones that they picked out of a hat, and they're like, "Well, I got to fix this one. I'm sure the rest of them were fine. It's just this one they messed up on. I'm sure it's fine."
Yeah. I got hired for a reason. Let's leave him to do his job.
By the way, so this opens with a Cisco log, captain's log, and I don't have any memory of there being a lot of logs in this show, especially at the beginning. Maybe that's just me not remembering it well, but am I remembering this right?
Yeah, no, there's not a lot of exposition and setting the scene with Captain's logs in DS9. And the way this episode started, it made me want one of those, kind of like we've talked about before, that like Eternia episode, like an episode where nothing happens on DS9. It's just a regular day of protocol, and we're just kind of following Cisco, doing his usual things. And there's no conflict. It's just a day, like maybe... No, that would be conflict.
Like similar to Data's Day in Next Gen. That kind of happens in Data's Day. I don't know. I don't remember the episode that well, but I do know that it's kind of that. We just sort of follow Data around. Nothing really dramatic or high stakes is happening. He's just... And there is a wedding. There is a wedding in that episode, actually. I think Keiko's getting married to Miles Davis. No. Miles O'Brien. There it is.
There it is. Yep.
There it is.
So going to say, I'll wait until you get it.
Yeah. That one was also directed and written by Robert Altman. I don't know if you knew that either. That Next Gen Data's Day, also written and directed by Robert Altman.
Yeah, I want to call BS on that one.
Oh, well, heard it both ways. Anyway, so it starts with Cisco leaving a log and how he's surprisingly happy. He's not surprisingly. He's happy. It's surprising that he's so upbeat, especially because like a week ago, he murdered like thousands of soldiers in the wormhole.
Oh, good point, right?
Like everybody's like super chipper. It's like there was this huge just extermination of army.
Yeah.
That
just disappeared into the wormhole.
Yeah.
Yep, they were there and then they weren't. Yeah.
And so it is, but you're right.
Sleeps a little better at night because of it.
It does start out kind of like in a chipper, nothing is happening. What could this episode possibly be about kind of way, which I guess changes shortly. I mean, so he goes in to see Martok, who I guess we're supposed to know from the previous episodes that we have not seen yet, because it feels very familiar.
No, so if I'm remembering correctly, this is a character who has been showing up since the original series, and he showed up in one or two episodes on Next Generation, and he's shown up more on DS9.
I do like him as a character. I guess I have no reason to at this point, but I maybe just like the actor who plays him. Like it feels very at home Klingon, right? It feels like this is exactly kind of, he's older, so he's just not like he's not full of vigor. He's kind of got some experience behind him. He's missing an eye, which I like all my Klingons to be weathered in that way.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and he just plays a almost like a retired warrior. You know, he still has that gruff demeanor, but he knows he's too old for battle.
Yeah, and he's like, I don't think he's necessarily, even though he says in this scene that I still want to be war adjacent, but I'll take this desk job that you've given me because my knees are bad.
Right. So ever since I took that arrow to the knee. Yeah.
The arrow to the Dominion uses bows and arrows for the most part.
And they have no deflection against it. The shields can't hold against that. That's matter, not energy. They don't know what to do about it.
Yeah, exactly. Works every time too. Also, like if you had just taken back a station that was a what do you want to call it in military terms? A strategic smart point? I don't know.
You should remember from your days of the Marines.
No, clearly. They should not be this chipper. They should be worried that they're going to get attacked at any moment, right? The second you take a highly strategic area, place, I would think that they would all be rushing to secure the base, weed out any stragglers, that kind of thing. I don't know. It seems like they should be a month later, or 2 months later, or something like that. But I don't know. That just struck me as kind of weird. But one thing that Sisko says, and this is sort of a problem about Star Trek in general. Sisko says, so Martok says, "Can I keep Worf as my intelligence agent?" Which I don't really know what that means, but he says that, and Sisko says, "Worf is the only officer who could never get enough work." And I feel like every single main character in the cast of a Star Trek show is always that character. They're always working too hard, and that's always sort of a conversation that happens and pops up every once in a while where, you work too much, Geordi. You should take a break, have some lemonade, like go in the hall. Like that's always a thing. It's like not every, I would think that in the future at this point that yes, they're a militaristic kind of organization, but they would have figured out the work-life balance at this point, I guess. I don't know. I'm tired of hearing that. It's sort of like when you ask a politician, what is your biggest flaw? And they say, well, I work too dang hard, folks.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And it's just
I care about the people too much.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just like, I'm done. I'm tired with it. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So does every other politician. Mm-hmm. Right. Well, and I feel like on Enterprise, that makes a little bit more sense because on Enterprise, only the best of the best get on the Enterprise. Like if you are on the Enterprise, it's because you were recognized for being the cream of the crop. And then, you come to the Enterprise and you're just a face in the crowd because everybody there has done their top work 100% of the time. Right.
And Enterprise feels more like you're on a ship, right? Like a boat. It just feels more perilous on that thing. So you want the best of the best who are it's just a working ship. Nobody should know each other's names, right? Because they're working too hard.
Right. So that would have been great. Like the first 3 seasons, they're just, Commander, Lieutenant.
Then somebody gets promoted and they're like, oh, damn it. This is going to be really confusing.
Well, and that's actually Troy's job in the first 2 to 3 seasons. Because she's an empath and she's slightly telepathic. She just walks around with Picard the entire time. Commander, LaForge, sir.
Oh, I thought that Picard would tell Troy, the one with the red hair, and she would run over to him and give him the order. But that's not what you meant.
She's in tune to his thoughts the entire time. And so he would just think, Troy, what's the name of blah, blah, blah. And she would just quickly on the intercom.
Oh, no. So he doesn't have to get out of bed then. Like he just stays in bed and Troy goes to the bridge and just they have like a Bluetooth link between them. And he just sort of thinks about what he wants to happen. And he doesn't even have to get out of breakfast bed. Breakfast bed? It's going to be one of those days.
Oh. So he's got 5 beds. This is my sleeping bed. This is my breakfast bed. And then I have a lunch bed, a nap bed, obviously.
So Picard, you stay all day in bed? Well, yeah, but they're different beds.
Right. I'm not a savage. Oh, man.
What are we watching? Oh, yeah. Okay, so then we're introduced to Worf's son, Alexander, who I do wonder if that is the same actor who played him in Next Gen.
If it is, he looks completely different, and I've heard tell that he was actually the worst actor to work with on Next Generation.
Yeah.
As far
I've
as
heard the same thing.
Okay, so yeah, just as far as demands and entitlement, he was just super difficult. So I can't imagine that it is the same one.
I mean, you could have recast it.
Yeah.
I mean, he's doing a good job playing the befuddled idiot, I guess.
Right. Right.
Although it is kind of funny when Alexander says, "Oh, you didn't hear? I was transferred to so and so," and then it cuts to Worf and Dax, and they don't make a reaction. And I don't know, is that a good thing or a bad thing? I was literally waiting for them to tell me, is this a good thing or a bad thing? And they don't react. It's like, oh, I can see why you're like this now, Alexander, because you get no feedback from your parents.
No idea, right? No encouragement whatsoever.
Yeah, so I don't know if that was on purpose or what happened. Is this the first time we're seeing Alexander? Surely not.
Like in general, or like
not on Next Gen, but on DS9. Like, and since Worf has been here,
pretty sure yes. I don't think that he has shown up on DS9 at all.
Okay, well that's interesting. Is it?
Yeah.
So, so then
I mean, it's a fact there. But.
So they decide they're going to have the wedding at Quark's and not after the war, which I just bored myself describing what happened. And then Dax and Kira talk about the wedding, and the plot still hasn't started, at least as far as I can tell, right? I don't know. Like, I actually thought to myself, am I missing something? Is there some context that I don't know about at this point in the season or in the show that is just hanging over this episode? And so I don't know. Like, is there a ticking bomb somewhere that I don't know about? And that's why that's where the tension is coming from, that we know about the bomb, but the rest of the people are just going about their day. But so Dax says something that totally disorients me from the character of Worf. She says, a traditional Klingon wedding is something Worf has been thinking about since he was a boy. Right. And I was thinking to myself, yes, something he has never talked about or something that we have never heard of until this very moment, right? And the 7 years of Next Gen and however many seasons that he's been on DS9, I hate it's such a retcon thing to do to a character, right? Because it's convenient.
To a certain extent, I agree. Like, it's weird that he never mentioned it, but he is also all about the Klingon tradition and practices, and he's never. Well, I guess he almost married Deanna and that other actual Klingon woman. Yeah, and so I feel like he, as somebody who is all about tradition, he would definitely want to have a Klingon wedding.
Yeah. But
at the same time, you're right. Like, it's not something that it's not something he's talked about over and over, and just like, you know, when they're laying in their nap bed and they're discussing what their future is.
They're like picking out outfits to wear, for their Ren Fair wedding that they're going to have later. But yeah, but it. Like, I mean, I can understand having a reverence for your culture. Maybe sort of a longing for the culture because he was raised by humans. And so I understand that part. That's sort of where I always put that reverence for Worf, is that he wanted so badly to be a part of this culture that he wasn't. And so he took it upon himself to learn about it and to embrace it. But this part where since he was a boy, talking about a wedding that probably he didn't even know about until he decided, like, until he was an adult, right? I mean, we don't know much about Worf's parents except that they're, like
human
most,
and not at the wedding.
Yeah, like most Star Trekian characters, which is male and white.
Right.
But you know what I mean? I don't know. It just struck me, right? Look, Jonathan, there's not a lot for me to grab onto in this episode. Okay, so I'm just trying to pick apart the interesting parts.
Oh, I'm sorry. So you considered that part interesting. Okay, then yeah.
How dare you? How dare you? We haven't even gotten to the bachelor party yet.
Right. Yeah. So let's get there.
Yeah. So I guess he invites all of his friends to a bachelor party, which they've never. I guess they're expecting something ruckus and like a normal human bachelor party, except they've never heard of. I feel like something like this we would have heard of at this point, especially since Worf talks about it all the time.
In the production notes, they talked about how one of the biggest complaints, aside from his parents not being there, was the crew of the Enterprise not being there. And they kind of wanted to do an all or nothing thing, and they justified the crew not being there by the fact that the date was moved up.
There is a war going on too, right? I can imagine.
Well, right. Yeah, and so that was kind of the point. But they actually had access to LeVar Burton and Jonathan Frakes because they had offices on the Paramount lot. And thinking about what you just said and the fact that they had a bachelor party, I'm kind of mad that they didn't bring Jordy on for the bachelor party.
Yeah, that would have been cool. Yeah.
I feel like they worked closely enough and they had enough of a connection that absolutely Worf would have let the Enterprise know that the wedding had been moved up, and obviously he couldn't make it for war reasons, but he was throwing the bachelor party and he really wanted Geordi and Riker and whoever else, Data, to be there. And Data and Riker couldn't make it for obvious reasons, Commander and an AI, but Geordi could as chief engineer, and so he came. And like, how great would that have been just to have that person who could not only make references to things that happen on the Enterprise, but who knew Worf well enough. So when everybody's like a bachelor party, he's like, I don't know, I mean, I've seen him walk through a walkway and get hit with death sticks, so I'm not too keen on whatever his bachelor party idea is.
What if they had Riker on there, and every scene with Riker is like, hey, remember when you were humping my wife? Remember that? Every scene.
Yeah. This is great. Oh, you know what would make it even better? My wife here, so you could hump her.
Yeah, you can hump my wife again.
Do you think it comes up in their marriage? She's like, I wish you would bite me every once in a while, like when we're bumping uglies. And he's like, oh, you mean like Worf did? She's like, no, don't go there. This isn't about Worf.
Okay, so we get to meet Martok's wife, Sorella.
This is actually a really important episode for the Klingon culture in general, because Ronald D. Moore actually inadvertently created a very male-dominant Klingon culture by saying that women can't be on the Klingon High Council. They felt like in so doing, in subsequent episodes, that the Klingons were essentially Ferengi in that respect, where the women had no part. And so this episode allowed them to show that the male Klingon, or the Klingon males were part of they ruled the council, but the women ruled the houses.
Every time I hear about some Ronald D. Moore trivia that you give, I get a little bit more angry with him, because I feel like does a lot of apologizing for the show, and right, he's always sort of justifying a decision that they made about the show. And every episode I watch, like I should be like, you are ashamed. You should be ashamed of yourself. Like you were writing for some of the best science fiction on the planet at the time, and we're having wedding episodes and darts episodes and kid episodes. Like what are you doing? Like every time, and you will give me some Ronald D. Moore trivia, and it will just be like, what we're thinking with this episode is this, and this, and this, and this, and this, and giving context that's not in the episode.
Right.
And I don't know. It starts to make me mad.
Right. I'm sorry. Yeah.
I'm sorry. Thank you. So wait. So what's her name? Sorella. Sorella does this whole. She has this big grand entrance, and she's sort of very hyper present. Right. She has a big presence as she walks onto the ship, and she's just mean to Martok.
Yes.
And you get the impression that maybe, and hey, there are people who like that kind of personality, but it's like not a fun mean. Like, I like fun mean. I prefer fun mean than just polite. But she's just mean. And he says something like, she's magnificent, isn't she?
That's exactly what she said. Or he said, yeah.
From this just encounter? No. She's just mean.
Are we looking at the same person? Are we talking about the same thing right now?
Cisco looks behind him like, what are you? Like,
looks past her like
somebody I can't see. Does she have an invisibility cloak that I can't see?
So I kind of got the different thing. Like, yes, she is not a fun mean, but I liked how unlikable she was, and I liked how much the actress seemed to really enjoy being that unlikable.
Yeah, it's very villainess type of character. I agree. I totally agree. Yeah, I was kind of ready. I was very much expecting this scenario where there's a point where she kind of in the Devil Wears Prada situation, where, I don't know, she's mean, but you're expecting there to be some sort of breakdown of the wall and they confide in each other. Or what happens is, where I thought it was going was, all of the tests that you go through are nonsense. It's just a matter of when do you stick up for yourself, or when do you assert yourself or your personality. And that's when you pass the test. you know?
Right.
Which doesn't happen. In fact, there's no
Which
catharsis.
doesn't happen.
There's no catharsis at all for this dynamic that Dax and Sorella have. She just disappears at some point and then is happy, is fine with it. You know?
It was almost as though it might as well have been cut as though Dax said, "I will go talk to her right now," and then it cuts to the two of them, and Sorella says, "Those are good points I hadn't considered. Welcome to the family." You know?
Right. That would have been more DS9. Them sitting in a room, coming to a conclusion, sitting down over tea.
Which we also saw in this episode.
There must have been stuff cut, right? Because there must have been some. I actually thought that when Dax, slugs her in the face, that she was going to love that, right? Because that's always what happens with Klingons.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Like you slug them in their face and they're enamored with you all of a sudden.
Well, yeah, like they're so mad that you hit them and they're like, "I love it."
Yeah.
Yeah.
My man. Yeah.
Right, and then Sorella starts chasing Dax around the room, and it just becomes, a Red Skeleton sketch. Yeah.
Right. Boy, that actually, I would have preferred that. That'd have been nice.
Pies start getting thrown. I was going to say cerulean pies, but...
Oh. What was this? What's the plot at this part? Are we watching a Star Trek episode? Right? Like, when does the Star Trek start?
Right. Well, yeah, and there was no B plot of any kind of sci-fi problems. It was Dax trying to get into the House of Martok and Worf infuriating his friends by having his bachelor party Klingon style.
Right. And I don't know. I mean, I guess they were doing it because it was important to Worf. And like almost kills his son. He shames his son into suffering
lighting more
exhaustion.
Fire.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. I just didn't like. You're right. And Worf is actually in this very little. By the way, I just realized this watching this episode today that Worf could have easily been played by Jamie Hyneman from Mythbusters. Like they have sort of the same cadence in their voice.
Okay, so he's the mustachioed one with the golf cap and the tinted glasses.
The one that looks like a walrus.
Oh, okay. Now I'm with you. Well, how sad for him. So one of the things that I did like when Dax and Kira were walking down the hall, and this is like near the start of the episode, when Odo deliberately bolts out down like a side corridor, and and Dax is like, "Wait a minute, that was Odo, right?" But I was really excited because since we just watched the episode where they hook up and we know that it's past this,
right?
I was so like frustrated that we would have to sit through Kira explaining what's going on with them, and so I was ready to gouge out my eyes when she starts talking, and she says he's not ready to talk about it. And you know what? I'm not ready to talk about it either. And they left it at that. And I was so happy.
Oh, that was great. I actually thought that the His Way episode happened before this episode, or before even the occupation that on DS9. I for some reason I didn't put it together that it was afterward, which was actually more confusing to me, knowing that it's now after. But it put it into a whole different context to me.
No, so you're saying this happened after His Way, and so sometime between His Way and this episode, they broke up?
They broke up, but also they've been through this whole ordeal where, as far as I can tell, Kira and Odo became estranged, whether they were together or not, because Odo was essentially siding with the Dominion.
Okay,
and that
okay.
was against Kira. I think he even imprisoned somebody or something. I don't remember this exact, but he did some bad stuff to Kira.
Right, because he was part of the Dominion and the Cardassian crew at DS9. Right. Okay, I gotcha. Right, and she hadn't forgiven him for that. Oh, okay.
So I mean that makes it a little bit more interesting that that's something to recover from after as though His Way had happened before this episode, but that's not the way it was.
Right. No, it isn't. So it's not as layered and complex and interesting as you're trying to make it.
Right.
But then they did the same thing later. They said, "We need to talk." And then they hide in the closet all night.
Well, I think they're in the bathroom. Are they in the bathroom or are they in the closet?
I thought it was the closet. I thought I saw like piles of clothes, but
right. I did. I mean, it doesn't matter. I just thought that. I guess there aren't any bathrooms in Star Trek.
Right, they just beam it out of themselves.
That'd be amazing. That'd be so amazing. What would that feel like?
Right, it's got to be the weirdest feeling because
you have to go and then you suddenly don't.
Right, you're not emptying, you're just voided. Like, you're not draining the tank. The tank is shrinking inside you.
Or just magically becoming empty.
Right.
Someone has had to have tried that, right? Some crappy scientist in Starfleet.
Well, yeah, I mean, they immediately died because they beamed their insides out.
Right. Well, they killed 12 dogs trying to practice on the dogs, and they're like, I got it. It doesn't, I mean...
Okay, I've learned my mistakes. It's fine. This next one will be great.
Do me.
And people stopped trying after that for some reason.
So, Sorella torments Dax by making her hold up these heavy weights.
Uh-huh.
God, what the hell's
While
wrong with
speaking
me?
in Klingon.
Stop.
Is somebody beaming out your insides?
It's not nearly as cool as I thought it would be. That's better. By the way, is it not the old? I don't know where this came from. Would it not be the ultimate prank to take a dump in Odo's bucket, like while he's not there?
I feel like you'd figure it out. You'd kind of want to do it like the moment he went into the bucket.
Well, is he conscious when he's like as a liquid, like when he's sleeping?
I think he is to a certain extent, but I think it's not unlike batteries where he has to recharge. So in those first few minutes or hour or whatever where he is in the bucket, there's nothing he can do about it. You know, he would just be cognizant of somebody mixing pee into himself or
dumping in, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And but I don't think he's aware of his surroundings at that time either. So he wouldn't even know who did it.
Something I would do though. Like I would sneak into his office every day and take a dump into the bucket, right? That should be an episode. Wouldn't that not? And it'd be like a cool sort of investigatory episode where he has to like figure out.
We're never told what it is that he's investigating, but there's like just little clues are dropped throughout the episode. I don't want to talk about it.
Yeah. Every time he walks by, someone's like,
Loaxana was here.
Yeah. She likes that kind of thing. Okay, so we learned that Quark in one scene, and in one scene only, that Quark has a crush on Dax. One scene.
Yep.
And then it goes away forever. So it was just very strange that
Well, for now.
Yeah.
There might have been something
does it
before
come
that we
back?
don't
I mean, I don't know. Tell me.
I don't know. Yeah. I don't know.
So let's talk about Dax's bachelorette party. I guess it's a bachelorette party. It's a party. It's a something, right? She's having a party.
Yes.
And she's definitely let her hair down because...
Right. Her hair's down.
Right. So she's playing congas, right? And she's hired a flamethrower guy.
Right. Lieutenant Toa from USS Sutherland, which, and I'm so sad this never happened. The idea was that the USS Sutherland, it's from a TNG episode. And I think it's Redemption or Resurrection 2 or something like that. I don't remember which episode it is, but the idea was that the USS Sutherland would actually be kind of like a party ship, and every time it came to DS9, there like wild antics would ensue because
that's great.
The USS. I know.
I mean, an episode is just materializing in my mind about what that would be like. It would be a murder episode, right? Like they would say,
of
like,
course.
right?
Like, what else would it be?
Like, it would be a prank gone wrong, and it would be like, well, this guy was like, it would be sort of a whodunit type of episode for Odo.
Right. Well, the idea was that to be an ongoing thing, so it wouldn't just be a one-off thing, but every season there would be an episode where the Sutherland came and something crazy would happen.
Right. Yeah, I love it. Let's do that.
Right?
Can we tell him to do that?
Yeah.
Ronald.
So the other side note was that Aaron Eisenberg, he was told to just dance however he wanted. Apparently he did lots of improv on the show, and that was the only bit of improv that was kept in the show. Everything else had been cut. And Terry Farrell, Dax, dancing along with him was also improvised. Like, so she saw it happen enough that she decided to do something to keep it in by dancing with him.
Well, I liked the idea that that's how a Ferengi dances. Like,
yes, that's what I thought. Yeah, that is absolutely what I thought. And so she was dancing like a Ferengi. Yep.
Yeah, that's like, those are hot moves to a Ferengi.
Right. Well, because he grabs his ears. Like, that's, straight up grabbing your junk.
I guess any move where you're jerking off, that's a hot move. I'm glad you brought it up.
Yeah.
Oh. So, okay, and then Sorella walks in, and they have their confrontation. And it wouldn't be a Star Trek episode without a little slut shaming. And they use the word slut, right?
Yeah.
And
did they?
Yeah. She's like, you're acting like a Virillian slut.
Ryzian.
I guess, right. That makes more sense.
Yeah.
Although it does say something about Ryza, where everybody seems to go on vacation.
Right.
It's like more like a Vegas now than it is sort of a utopia. Like you think of Ryza whenever they talk about it in TNG as this sort of utopianistic, just nice place.
You're right.
But now, with that comment, they've turned Ryza into like a Vegas thing where you can just go and do whatever you want. Yeah. If you want to read by the pool like Picard does, you can go do that. But if you want to get into some more good stuff.
Yeah, promiscuous stuff. Yeah.
So they have their confrontation. She punches her and the wedding's off. And then, so...
Oh, sorry, this is my last note. She actually punched her.
Really?
Yeah.
Ouch.
It wasn't intentional. Like, they got too close and she didn't turn in time. And so she straight up punched her.
Oh, that makes me want to go back and watch it to see if they use that take.
Right.
I mean, I would hope so. Like, that's going to look the most realistic when you actually make content.
Right. We'll film it from the side this time. That way we can actually see it.
So that happens. And so something weird happens to me, which is Dax starts super flirting with the knife guy or the fire guy. Mm-hmm. And a really weird, like, I would be pissed at my fiance if that was happening and I didn't know about it, right? Like, it's not like she was his friend. I mean, in a way, if he was just a stripper dude and she was kind of handsy with him, I'd be like, whatever, right? But she was his friend, and he was an officer who does this, I guess, on the side as a hobby. And I don't know, it was weird. I thought it was going to be something where that wasn't Dax or something.
Right,
that it was some sort of, like, it was going to be part of the whatever Klingon bachelor party where it was like, this is another form of temptation.
That would have been so cool. Right. Or like a hallucination that Worf was having because of the heat stroke. Right.
Right. But it wasn't. She was just super flirty with the buff fat guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very strange. It was just very odd. I don't know what the point of that was. I guess that she was letting loose. And so Sorella could call her a slut, I guess. Mm-hmm. Okay. So the next day happens and she's all hungover. And the guy that's always at Quark's bar is there, and so is the guy. And I was like, did they make bumpies? Did Dax make bumpies with the fire guy?
Right.
I didn't know. Are we supposed to think that? I mean, obviously, I guess that didn't happen, but because the guy from Quark's was there. But it just seemed like that was the obvious thing that was going to. She was going to feel terrible because she got too drunk, and because they set up that whole thing, and maybe that was going to become a thing. That did they or didn't they?
The note actually. It says that if she had not been interrupted by Sorella, there is a good chance that she would have. So apparently the implication there is that she did not. But the fact that she was flirting with him and then she woke up and he woke up like not too far away, I absolutely thought that was the case too.
Yeah.
And this whole episode, because of when it took place after the resolution of the Dominion War, or at least the first battle, it seems like they didn't have a clear cut plan of where they were going after this. There were a lot of scenes that were written and cut out, and like when Kira and Odo disappear, how that scene was actually going to go was Odo was going to come in and basically say, like, there were going to be scenes where he felt he was avoiding everybody because he felt guilty for what he did, and he was going to come in and say, I can't be friends with you anymore because of how I behaved, and so I will continue to do my job, but we should no longer have any social interactions, and just kind of kill the mood that way. And Renee went to, who wrote the episode?
Robert Altman.
There we go. Yeah. Went to Robert and said, okay, so what's going to happen? Like, where is he ultimately going to end up? And Robert didn't have any idea for that. And so instead of forcing him into this hole that they didn't have an outcome for. They just cut the scene entirely to make sure that they still had room to decide where he was going. And there were going to be scenes where, like Bashir, it was going to turn out that Wei-Yun was actually staying in Bashir's quarters. And so Bashir was going to be seen taking all of Wei-Yun's stuff out. You know, and so like there were all of these threads that were both resolving things from previous episodes and kind of leading to other things, but they didn't know what they were leading to, and so they just cut them out. So the episode feels very one note, first off, because we're just dealing with a wedding from two different perspectives, and two, it just feels very superficial because we're not really seeing any fallout from what happened literally last week.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just sort of this weird bottle episode, I guess, in terms of overall arching plot lines.
The follow-up where Cisco says, you know, I'll go talk to her, and then he goes in and yells at her as if she's the old man, and then they sit down on the couch and she snuggles up next to him. This almost feels a little like a Voyager episode insofar as not necessarily that there was so much more that they could have done with it just based on the episode, but it just feels like they should have done more. Like there should have been a moment with Dax and Sorella, kind of with her standing up, with Dax standing up to Sorella and Sorella admiring the gumption, you know, kind of like what we just said about the punch. Or, you know, or something where like we saw Worf and Dax talk about the fact that they're, you know, like O'Brien said, they're both right. You know, and so them being able to talk to each other about how they are coming from diametrically different positions, but they have fallen in love, and that's the point. The point is for the two of them to like build each other up and, you know, strengthen each other's weaknesses rather than constantly at odds with each other. And
I can't remember, is there a scene where Worf and Dax make up before the wedding? There's not.
No. Yeah, she's like, well, I gotta, you know, looks like I have some work to do. Dax says that, and then the next scene is the wedding. And that's what I'm saying. Like there was no there, you know, kind of the catharsis that you were talking about. There's no real moment of resolution in any of these things. You know, it's just, and they all lived happily ever after. And they have their Ren Fair. They look like they're wearing Ren Fair outfits, right? Oh, for sure. Yeah. Like with the crowns and stuff. It just looks like they should be eating one of those giant turkey legs and a Diet Coke. Mm-hmm. I don't usually eat Diet Coke, but yeah. I think I get what you're saying. You know what I mean. Okay, so Ben makes an appearance in this, and he talks about the book that he wrote, and that it's going to be published. And Quark's, Jake, whatever. And so he says, Quark says to him, so what do they pay you? He's like, no, they don't pay me. So I thought to myself, okay, so there's another scene where they're about to eat dinner after the wedding is canceled, and he said, you have to pay for this even though you're not going to eat it. Right. I'm summing it up. So I was like, I still don't understand. I don't have a good sense of how a Starfleet officer operates in a capitalistic space station like this. Are they given a per diem so they can go eat? Because Quark's is requires money, but they don't pay Ben for his work as an author. So what's going on? Right. I think kind of what we were talking about, how there's no money used within the Federation, but they have to have funds to be able to converse with other cultures. You know, and the Ferengi are not a part of the Federation, so they have to have those funds. So are they? Is it just sort of part of being a Federation? Is that they give you money to spend? Yeah, that's well, right. Like if you're dealing with stuff outside of the Federation takes care of it. You know, and I would imagine that there are like restrictions and regulations. Like you can't go gambling, but you know, clearly you can because there's a casino right there. Yeah, right. They're in one, right. and they play darts for money. Yeah. Right. So I mean, maybe there is maybe the DS, like maybe stations have a budget, you know, where the people who work there are given per diems because they are dealing with people outside of the Federation. Because Jake works on that. He works, maybe doesn't work. What does Jake do on the station anyway? Writes books, I guess. How is he contributing to the Federation or Starfleet? He's not an officer. I know there's an answer out there. And if our listeners know, they can send us an email. Wait, maybe if we say don't send us an email, someone will actually email us. Don't send us an email at TheMeasureOfAnEpisode at gmail.com. Sick of all the emails that you guys are thinking about writing. So stop it. Don't bother. Just do it already. Yeah, either stop thinking about it or just do it.
Right.
But all these emails that you've been thinking about writing, it's too much. It's too much.
Yeah. We're tired of it. People.
All this to say,
yeah.
our email has one email from Ensign Rowe.
I forgot about that. That's a good email, though.
If there are any listeners who are so inclined, just to shoot us a message, say hey, or say really like these kind of episodes from this series, or I don't like these episodes, so I stopped listening, or you guys are great, or you guys are trash. Constructive feedback of any kind.
All right. So where do you come down? Is this a? Is this?
It was a hard decision. I probably spent days
that long.
deliberating on whether or not this was an episode, proper Star Trek episode. And I'm gonna say yes, but just barely.
Well, I also deliberated for what felt like days. It was probably 2 or 3 seconds, but no, like this is barely a full episode of television. It doesn't really even complete itself, to be honest. Yes, they get married, but it doesn't even feel like that we got anywhere at the end. I mean, maybe this is a lead up. I guess they've canceled the wedding a couple of times. I got the impression, maybe. But I just didn't care.
Right. Well, and here's the other part of it too. That's a problem that I just thought of. The conflict. First off, there was no conflict that was presented in the cold open, and in the start of the episode, they're going to get married, and at the end of the episode, they got married.
Yeah.
There are no conflicts that get resolved in this episode at all. They do get resolved. We just never see any of them.
It's kind of an impotent episode.
Right. And there's not really any ethical or moral dilemma that happens, like should you follow through on a wedding? That just seems to be.
I guess maybe it could be, does Dax stand her ground, or does she commit because she loves Worf and kind of swallows her pride? It's not really moral, though. I mean, that's
right.
That's just a character moment.
Personal.
For her.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing. So the answer is yes. Yes.
Right. Yeah. Unequivocally.
Okay. So let's go see what we're watching next.
Yes, please.
Which is The Next Generation. Season 1, 25. What? Season 1, episode 25, The Neutral Zone. Waiting for Captain Picard's return from a Federation conference, the Enterprise crew discovers a disabled 20th century Earth satellite. Oh, I think I like this one.
I don't remember this one.
Awesome.
Great. Well,
return from a Federation conference. Riveting.
Right. It'll be like the medical conference that Phlox had to go to.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, well, nothing to say, I guess, about that, except we should go watch it now.
Right? Yeah, let's do that.
Very well, sir.